Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and whatever else is watching. My name is Nick, and well, this is another video about the news of the Switch 2. Something I wanted to get off my chest a little bit, and actually I'm also dreading to make. And yeah, this video goes into the prices of the system and the games surrounding it. But first, since I recorded the last video, some new information is out on the Switch 2 editions of Switch 1 games. And I wanted to address that one because it makes those Switch 2 editions a lot more interesting as a game collector to me. A lot more interesting to buy physically. Because on the physical versions, the actual Switch 2 version will be available. There is no download required for getting the Switch 2 version. And at least that is what Nintendo of Europe has confirmed. Is this for every single one of them? I don't know. Is it a Switch 1 version and including the Switch 1 or the Switch 2 patch that has to be installed on the system? I don't know. All in all, I know that if I buy the physical version and I will sell it in 50 years or something for someone who also has a Switch 2 by then, they can still play the Switch 2 version. And that's what I am more willing to, accept as something that I am thinking of. Okay, yeah, this is something that is valuable to add to the collection. Because it is also preservation of games. And that is what I think is so great about all of that. However, we come to the next little bit of this news, which is the Zelda expansion pass for Breath of the Wild. And this little bit is what is stabbing my heart really hard. The expansion pass will not be on the cartridge of the Switch 2 edition. The Switch 2 edition will therefore not be a complete edition. It will just be the basic Switch 1 version with upgraded graphics. Well, and the feature to connect it to a mobile phone or something, which is... I'm not looking forward to that little bit. But yeah, and this does stab my heart really a lot. Because in order to get someone who is new for this, to get into the Switch 2 and play Breath of the Wild, the best part of Breath of the Wild was the DLC. And they will have to additionally buy that. Now, I'm thinking that we can still get... if I already bought the DLC for the Switch 1, that with the same account I can also install it on my Switch 2. And I'm hoping I don't have to transfer any information on it, like you had to do between Switch 1 edition if you want to go from the Switch 1 to the Switch Lite. But yeah, I'm wondering all about that one. And so I don't have to really buy the expansion pass again, because I already bought it for the Switch 1. And that would mean it is included with the Switch 2. But it's such a major letdown that a game that is over 8 years old now, whose DLC is about 7 years old right now, is not included in the physical re-release of this game. Even with Mario Kart 8, when that came out on the Wii U, it had DLC tracks. It had DLC cups that came out afterwards. 4 new cups, which resulted in 16 new tracks. And yet, when Nintendo released this on the Switch with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which was much less than 8 years having been passed, those downloaded tracks, those DLC tracks, were included back then. Those DLC tracks were available. You didn't have to download. No, they were actually on the disc. Or not on the disc, on the cartridge. And this is what hurts me a lot with Zelda Breath of the Wild. The Switch 2 edition could have been a complete version of the game. But it isn't. You still have to download it. And when the servers for the eShop go down eventually, the best part of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild gets lost. And that's so sad. That's really, really the thing I thought, man, this is a bummer. This bums me out. Next up, before I actually delve into the prices a little bit more, I wanted to talk about the video and the game Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. It's something that former Nintendo president of Nintendo of America president Reggie Fils-Aimé also hinted at. And I agree, this game should have been a pack-in game. And I know I have said in a previous video that yes, they could have increased the price of the Switch 2 then if they really wanted to charge for it. And this might have not gone over, and I still stand by it. There is something, however, I do want to clarify this. I think that the combination of this game and the Switch 2 in price still is reasonable. It's a reasonable price. So if you would have had that, then it would have been okay. If Nintendo wanted to charge it, it's still a reasonable price. And we would not have known about the price of a Nintendo Switch standalone without this game. We would have only known about the Nintendo Switch standalone with Mario Kart World Tour. And probably even Mario Kart World, I have to say, not World Tour. Or we would have had a bundle where Mario Kart World and Welcome Tour were in there. The thing is that I think about this game is that as a game on its own, it may have some fun, but it doesn't have added value besides being a showcase of what the Switch 2 is all about. Being a showcase of what the Switch 2 can do. And if you don't use it, therefore, to sell the Switch or to have this with the Switch, and that people will have to sell it separately, this game will be somewhat forgotten because people aren't interested in learning diagrams or I have to put it differently. People aren't interested in buying an additional game that tells you about, gives you diagrams on the hardware and why things are working in certain fashion, or even showing little mini games that can show off what the Switch is compared to other Nintendo systems. they just want full-fledged games. However, if this was a pack-in game, this game would be played a lot because it does show off the system, and it shows off and it can grab someone's curiosity. Having already bought that little bit actually makes it a lot more, how do we say it? Actually makes this a lot more enticing to also play it. However, if they have to go separately to an eShop to buy this game, to find it and buy this game, when they are in the store, they can get a copy of Mario Kart World or The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. One of those additional to this game, or even, God forbid, Fast Fusion on the eShop. Those are games that are, as a game, far more valuable than Welcome Tour is. Welcome Tour can be fun, and it may even be the €10 worth the €10 that you have to pay for it. However, it is not worth your effort of going to the eShop and getting it. When going to the eShop and getting it can net you actually more fun games to play. Games that will last you a lot longer than just a few hours. And I'm not saying that this game can be played to completion in a few hours. Maybe it can. But still, if this was a packing game, it would be valued a lot more. Something that I still think is kind of sad. During the Switch 1 release, there was the game 1-2 Switch, which has some fun mini games, has some fun little extras, fun things that actually show off what that hardware was capable of, what the HD Rumble did, what the IR sensor could do, and how the motion tracking and all that kind of stuff was, besides regular games. However, because this was not a pack-in game, people kind of ridiculed it. And rightfully so, because maybe back then that game wasn't worth the price that you had to pay for it. It wasn't worth full price, because I think it was at least €40 back then. I'm not too sure about it. But yeah, that was just such a big mistake. The thing that the Wii itself was also really great at was because in Europe and in the US, Reggie Fils-Aimé made sure that Wii Sports got packed in. So when someone bought the Wii, they got Wii Sports, which showed off the motion controls really well. The buttons are already known by people, but the motion controls weren't back then. And because it had such a wide range of motions that were supported, it really showed off well what the system can do, and why other games that have motion control in it can also still be valuable. And that, well, even the games on the Wii weren't that graphically good like the 360 or the PlayStation 3 was. They could still be a lot of fun. And that is what Wii Sports showed off. It enticed people to also consider buying more games. And I know throughout Nintendo's history, the NES at first didn't come with a game either. Super Nintendo didn't come with a game either, although later on there were packs that included games. Nintendo 64 didn't come with a game either. I can remember my first Nintendo 64 when I bought it. I bought the Nintendo 64 with Mario Kart 64 and GoldenEye. You would have expected something like Super Mario 64 as a packing game back then, because Super Mario World actually was a packing game at one point for the Super Nintendo. Same with the GameCube. There was no packing game. However, the Wii enticed people because there was a packing game. They could get the system and could have fun with it, with just the system. Welcome Tour could have been the same thing. With the system, it would have come with this, and people could have immediately have fun without the additional effort of going to the eShop and getting Welcome Tour. So, yeah, actually having to make the choice. And that is what I think of it. The game should just be there for the presentation. And about the price, we would not have known it if it was actually included in the price, or that price would have been higher. We would not know now, because it's separate, that the price is increased. Because they are selling it separately, it makes the Switch more expensive. But even if they would have combined these prices and sold it as a single pack, no, we would not have known it. We would have never known that this game would cost 10 euros. So yeah, this is what I think of Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. And now we get into the part that I'm kinda dreading as well. I have some strong opinions on this, but I'm also dreading that my opinions are not really conveyed very well, and thus it will upset a lot of people, because I am not, like most people, outraged about the prices. I don't have this big outrage about, drop the price that the people were spamming in the Treehouse Live section when that was up last week. I don't have a idea of, you should not buy this system. No, I don't think that's a good thing about it. I have talked about colleagues, and they are also talking about, and they are pretty much aping the same arguments as many would give online without actually thinking through of what those arguments really mean. And unfortunately, I think I don't agree a lot with those arguments. I do have my own opinion, and that is something I will go over right now. However, if you disagree with it, I fully understand. Your opinion is just as valid as my opinion is. And if you really want to tell me what your opinion is, then go ahead. That's why the comment section is for. But try to be civil, and don't start calling me names or something, because you're not helping anyone with that a little bit. But yeah, so let's get into it. The prices have been announced. They weren't announced during the Direct itself, and as I mentioned also, I thought I actually expected they wouldn't be announced there, But there could have been two reasons why not. Either the prices are that ridiculously high and it would start an outrage, which it did. Although, yeah, about the prices. Or it is because every region of the world has different prices. And what the US is doing at this moment with markets is also really dumb, and therefore prices can change at any time. So they wouldn't want to fix a price in a direct that they would have to, that is recorded much earlier, and then they would have to contradict again right after with a press statement. Oh, this was wrong. Saying this was wrong because of due to tariffs, it has to go up. And all that kind of stuff. Because, well, what the USA is doing at this moment is just so destructive for the entire economic world, or better say yet, the global economy, that, yeah, it's just fucked up. It's just a big mess. However, okay, in Europe, or better yet, in the Netherlands, where I live, a bundle for the Switch 2 will cost either 470 euros without a game, or 410 euros with Mario Kart World. This may seem like, hey, this price is higher than what's in the US or something. However, you have to also look at it relatively, because something that is true in Europe is not true in many other parts of the world. And that is the fact that if you see a sticker price on a product, and for example, I have this bundle with Mario Kart World that costs 510 euros. And in my wallet, I have 510 euros cash. I don't have a credit card. I don't have a debit card or anything, any other money that I can use to buy this system. I can go into the store, grab one off the shelf, lay down the 510 euros, and walk out of the store with a system. Now wonder with by yourself at your situation. Can you still do that? Because in the US, for all I know, is that the price that they have on the sticker is not the price that you will be paying at the register. There will be added taxes and other fees and all that kind of stuff that may drive up the price a lot. So, yeah, that's why I'm saying this in Europe, the prices may seem higher than your dollar average, but that is because all the fees and all the additional taxes are included in the sticker price. You're not shops are not allowed to show prices that aren't the exact prices that consumers will eventually pay at the register for that one product. However, if there are additional fees of, okay, we are making things ready for you, or we are cleaning things up or something, those are additional services that you can also opt out of. For example, I don't need someone to pre-install stuff on here and help me set up the account. I don't need that service. I can do that myself. Pretty much anyone can do that himself or herself. But there are still shops that actually offer that service. And that is something you will have to pay separately for. But taxes, they are always included in the price. So yeah, this is the 510 or 470. And to be honest, considering you are still dealing with a handheld device that also comes with hardware that allows you to play it on the big screen on your television. A Switch is still foremost a handheld device and a home console second. And that is also you have to consider. And therefore the hardware that is put in there has to be designed for that mobility in mind. Yes, it can be powerful hardware, but it also has to be small. And it shouldn't drain your battery within a minute. So therefore I think the prices of the system would have been entirely reasonable. Now, if we go to the peripherals, such as the camera, which you can buy for a 60 euros, I do recommend you buy the Hori camera, because the Piranha plant gives so much more personality to that camera, so much more, it's so much more to, or it's even more fun to see in your house than this camera, or the actual Switch 2 camera, and it is 20 euros cheaper. I think this is a little bit overpriced, the camera. Especially when a better camera is cheaper to begin with. The GameCube controller, well, initially when the first Switch 1 released, I think the controllers were also around 60 euros or 70 euros. The Pro, oh no, wait, this is the GameCube controller. I was talking about the Switch 2 Pro controller. The GameCube controller, well, I do have the adapter, so I don't think I'm gonna buy this, and it is only usable, it's actually made to be used with NSO GameCube Classics editions. And I don't have NSO. So yeah, that's something that I'm not gonna be buying either. However, the Switch 2 Pro controller, I think the Pro controller for the Switch 1 was 70 euros. So yeah, this price increase still is a lot for a single controller. But I think it's still reasonable price increase. And the micro SD express cards, it again is different chip technology on a very small size. So yeah, if you can work with this, okay, that it is 60 euros is okay. However, I still would recommend this Switch 2 will come with about how do I say it? Well, with 265 gigabytes internal storage. And as long as that is sufficient for you to put games on, for you to put download games on. And I know a lot of YouTubers are buying about 3 or 4 games each month, if not 10 games each month, or they just get a download code for reviewing, so they don't even buy them. Yeah, then storage will run out really fast, and they will have to buy these express cards. However, for the casual consumer that doesn't get that many games to begin with, I think you can still wait a while until you actually run out of space, and then look at what SD cards are really available and the prices for that. You don't have to expand your storage right from the get-go. There is nothing wrong with that. Now we are getting to the game prices, and this is a point of contention. And my opinion isn't, as I said, isn't the same as many other people's opinion, and that's fine. If you don't like these prices, that's a valid opinion. If you can reason why you don't like these prices, that's a valid opinion as well. If you are doing, are not liking it, yeah, that's something you can voice. Me as a Dutch person, I can tell you I would love to pay the least amount of money for a video game as possible. I'm not expecting it for free. However, if I can get it for a single euro, then yes, I would be happy. However, that's not the reality. And Nintendo has raised the prices significantly. Mario Kart World is 80 bucks digital or 80 euros digital, and 90 euros for physical. Donkey Kong Bonanza is 70 euros digital and 80 euros physical. This is a significant price increase, which I get. I understand why it happened. I understand why they increased the price. And in all honesty, having the price be fixed for so many years, almost a decade, that was completely unnatural. I think we would see less outrage if prices of video games would go up annually, like every other product. However, that doesn't happen. And I get it why Nintendo decides to raise the prices like this. Because in the end, Nintendo is not your friend. Nintendo is not a charity foundation. They don't give things away. They are here to make a profit. And preferably each year with record amounts. It's not that they want all the money, but they do set their prices so they can get the most amount of profit out of it. If this means that they have to raise the prices and they will sell less copies, so be it. As long as the margin of increasing the price gives more revenue, or a more profit at least, than it would have if they kept the amount of let me put it this way. If the amount of margin that increases in revenue outscales the amount of copies that are sold less, then the profit will increase. And that is what Nintendo will focus on. They don't have to sell to everyone. As long as the ones that they do sell to increase their profits. That is how our culture works. This is the capitalist system of a free market. It works based on supply and demand, creating demand, giving and providing supply, but also on the cost of creating a product versus the revenue it brings in. Because that difference is the profit margin, and that difference needs to be maximized. Now, I am in a situation that I can easily afford these prices. I have a good job. No, that's not YouTube. And no, I don't get free games or free systems from Nintendo or any developer. I am pretty much in the same boat as most people. I have to buy my own games, I have to buy my own systems. But I have a good job with a good salary and raises that can mostly compensate with inflation, with the prices going up. And therefore, I am still capable of buying many games for these prices and many more than I actually have the time to play. So in that sense, yes, for me personally, if I want to play a game, every game looks fun, I am quite okay with paying that price. And to, well, ignore or abstain from things that I like to do just because someone I don't know cannot do it, yeah, that is not something that is in my nature. I don't think anyone's nature. It's not that I don't empathize, but I also do have to think about myself and my well-being, my enjoyment. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to say about the price. So I get it why these prices are here. And in all honesty, if you truly want to know what the prices are going to be, just go to your local shop. This is one online website that I frequently use to order my products. And as you saw, a physical version of Mario Kart World was going to be 90 euros. Well, on this shop, it's costing 85, which is less. And a pre-order of Donkey Kong Bonanza is 75. And there are even games such as Bravely Default, Flying Fairy, that is 60. And if we scroll down, we have a 55 for Street Fighter 6, 65 for Rune Factory. They also just price their products in order to get the most profit. They price the products in order that they think will maximize the profits, that they will give sufficient sales numbers that will give revenue to make the biggest difference with the cost of developing this the product, the game, in this sense. And to be honest, yeah, that's what what companies are always going to reach for. So yeah, each time when you hear prices, always check with your local shop, because maybe the prices aren't as different as you think, or maybe as high as it's going to be. And in all honesty, of all these games, I'm actually the most interested in Mario Kart World. I really like what they have shown off at this moment. I think it's worth the price of the game. I also am waiting for Kirby for here. This is also the thing that I am waiting for, because I am really interested in what this additional gameplay is all about. Is this every level being remastered? Or are we going to get some remastered versions of snippets of levels? Just like the isolated isles were. As a bonus to it. Because this increases the game a lot. For the rest, yeah, I think here we have a example of where a game keycard is used. You can see this banner. And as you can see also, it's 40 euros for this game. If a game keycard makes it so that a price drops drastically like this, so we don't have to pay 70 euros or 80 euros, then, well, from a preservation perspective, I'd rather have it on the entire on an entire cartridge. However, from a consumer perspective is this probably a better option. Because a game key card I can still trade back in when I don't like this game. A game key card is something I can still sell to others, and they can then use the game key card and download the game to their Switch 2. And I can earn also some of my money back that I spent on it. If game key card makes it more makes the games cheaper, that's also a advantage. So yeah, I'm not that set against game key cards at this moment. They do have their benefits from a consumer perspective. However, the game key cards are not digital versions of games because you still require these game key cards, I think. At least I think that is what it is. You have to put them in the console to play the games. Even if you have downloaded it and you played it again, I don't think you can take the card out and then play the digital version. But I might be wrong on that one, that bit. But yeah, if it makes the price a lot less, so I'm not that sad about that it is a game key card. So from a consumer perspective, it's just a better deal. However, collector's perspective, even here, Street Fighter 6, oof. I wish we could have had this on a single cartridge. But then again, the DLC with fighting games nowadays, it's better to have a digital version anyway, because you have to pay for so many fighters nowadays, battle passes and all that kind of stuff. And that's something that people don't mention, that a number of these games, Mario Kart World, maybe €90. But this is €90 for the entire game. When you take a look at what Mario Kart 8 was, they had on the Wii U, you also had to pay 50 or 55 euros for it, for the base game. And then you had another 30 euros for the fee for additional Grand Prix as a download pack. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It came with the download pack, everything. It was 60 euros, but then you had 30 euros additionally to get additional tracks and additional cups and all that kind of stuff with booster pack. And from what I have seen, Mario Kart World seems to have as many cups as the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has with the booster pass. So in that sense, if you already count the DLC and everything together, Mario Kart 8 or Mario Kart World isn't that much more expensive than 8 was with its booster pass. So yeah. But what I'm trying to say is always check your stores when you are going for the to base your prices on. Maybe you can get them somewhere cheap. Okay, this is one final news article that I do want to cover, and it also has to deal with the cost of the Switch 2. This is about an interview that Doug Bowser had with a Canadian station, CBC, where he talked about the high price of the Switch, which kinda had this Don Matrick vibe to it when Don Matrick talked about the Xbox One. He said that if you can't afford the Xbox One, we still have the Xbox 360, which is cheaper than the Xbox One. And Doug Bowser essentially says the same thing, except he trades the Switch 2 and the Switch 1 in for the Xbox One and the Xbox 360. If you can't afford the Switch 2, then buy the Switch 1. And this is such a bad take. This is a really bad take. Because I don't want to exclude anyone from gaming. But if you cannot afford the Switch 2, I cannot recommend you to buy the Switch 1 instead. You are in a financial situation that maybe now you can afford the Switch 1, but in 2-3 years, the inflation on bread, housing, actually food, water, housing, electricity, all that kind of stuff, life essential products have increased so much, and you are already in a situation where your salary will not increase that much because the divide between the wealthy and the poor becomes bigger and bigger in all cultures almost. Even in the social democracies here in Europe, the divide between wealthy and poor becomes bigger. And that also means that when inflation hits, in a couple of years, you cannot afford Switch 1 games either. And Switch 1 games will not drop in price. The Switch 1 will also not drop in price itself. So recommending someone to buy the Switch 1 instead, that is a really bad take. Because even though I would love to see them play video games and enjoy video games, the reality is that you're in a financial situation that you may have to consider different hobbies. Because playing video games has always been a luxury hobby, a very expensive luxury hobby. Same as traveling all around the world, that is also a very expensive luxury hobby. And considering your financial situation, it is always best to think about life essential products first, like housing, like electricity, like water, like food, all that kind of stuff, clothing, all that stuff whose prices are skyrocketing at the moment, while luxury goods stay relatively the same. It is still better that you consider that, and maybe pick a hobby that isn't going to bankrupt you. Because the video game industry isn't going to help you in this situation. And running away with it, the escapism that video games provide, may alleviate the pain. But it isn't going to solve anything either. The problem is the culture we are living in, where it is fine for CEOs and board of directors to give barely any wage raises or salary increases to the workers that actually realize their products. I used to think CEOs, they are in the end the final responsible for the well-being of a company, and thus that they would get a little bit more money is also understandable, because they are in the end the largest part, the risk takers. They will have to be the one that step down or are going to be the ones that in the hot seat for the well-being of a company. They have to lead by example. However, Currently, I am no longer thinking this. CEOs have rearranged golden parachutes and everything. If the company goes bad or something, they aren't troubled with it. It are the massive layoffs among the developers and everything within the company that are the first to suffer for things. Even when they are reporting record-hitting profits. It are the lower level jobs that are still getting cut. And CEOs get bonuses. And this is what I think is such a bad thing. The rich get even more rich, and the poor get even poorer. And I am lucky I live in the Netherlands that has a little bit of a welfare state that attempts to level or decrease the gap between rich and poor, between the richest and the poorest, due to taxes and subsidies for taxes on the rich and subsidies for the poor. That increase to divide the wealth a little bit, or that tries to divide the wealth. However, there are many countries like the USA that don't care about that at all, and where the rich give show the hope to the poor that they might be getting rich, while the rich also make laws and regulations that keep the poor poor and the richest rich. So, in the end, look at your own financial situation. Decide whether a Switch 2 is worth buying. And don't think that, if you can't buy a Switch 2, then there is always a Switch 1 to buy, or an Xbox Series S or something, or a PlayStation 4, or a Xbox One, or whatever, or a much cheaper system. No, because you're still getting into a market of a very expensive luxury good. Even though compared to life necessities, it's not that expensive anymore. It still is something that will cost you a lot of money. Now, if you already have a Switch 1, and that is something that Doug Bowser should have actually mentioned, if you already have a Switch 1, you don't have to go over to the Switch 2 immediately or ever. Because in the coming year, there will still be new Switch 1 games. Games you can play on the Switch 1, even though there are exclusive games such as Mario Kart World that will only be available on the Switch 2. There are still other games that are still coming to the Switch 1. And those are games that you can still play. You can still have new games, and by the time it's right that you can go to the Switch 2, the Switch 2 will still be there waiting for you. Maybe even the entire scalper situation will be resolved by then. And stock will be plenty. So that is something if you already have a Switch 1. Because like with the NES and the Super Nintendo, Nintendo brought some of their best IPs during that transition phase. Kirby's Adventure came out during that transition phase. And that is one of the most memorable games back then. So, yeah, I would think, consider your own situation. The stake from Doug Bowser is just completely wrong. Forget it. Don't buy a Switch 1 if you don't have it, when you cannot afford a Switch 2. Don't buy video games at all if you cannot afford it. But if you have Switch 1 games, don't worry too much about running out of new games. Because there still are. Well, with this being said, I do hope that I've given shown a light on my opinion on the entire Switch 2 situation. I am excited for this new system, even though I haven't been able to pre-order it yet. All the pre-orders I tried were already sold out. So I'm hoping that the stocks with the shops will be high enough that I can actually go to a shop and get one. That I can just walk to a shop and buy myself, just picking off one off the rack, just like with the PlayStation 5 I could back then. The Switch 1 actually had a really interesting story behind that. Maybe I'll tell that one day, how I got that one. Because I did pre-order it. I got to pre-order it, but I think I also kind of crapped up the line that I shouldn't have. That being said, yeah. I thank you all for watching, and I hope, well, let me know what you think about Switch 2. And please be civil about it as well, in the comments down below. I can understand if you don't like the situation. I can also understand if you don't mind the situation. All in all, I thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye!